Today, I'm going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to be reacting to Mike Renner and PFF's way too early 2023 mock draft. Now, keep in mind, this was from May 2nd, 2022, so before this last season. And now, I just want to put this out there before we get going that the point of this video is not to make fun of or criticize Mike Renner at all. Mike Renner is one of my favorite, most trusted dudes in like the whole draft space. The whole point of this video is I just want to look at like what we were thinking on players before, what players have risen, what players have fallen. There's a couple returning dudes on this list that, maybe it'll be on like your 2024 way too early mock drafts. But I just want to go back in the Wayback Machine and look at it. Like I said, not no like dissing or anything to like Mike Renner. I'm not trying to criticize any of this because like this was a lot of projections. You're way too early. They're just projections and fun. So I just want to have some fun and kind of look through it. So we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. You mind, like I said, this is from May of last year, almost a year ago. So first up, we had Houston Texans, Bryce Young. Keep in mind, this draft order was based off, I believe, just betting odds. So the draft order is kind of just bogus. Don't worry about that. But more the players. Bryce Young, we knew he was going to be a stud after his first season. I mean, he balled out for Bama, did it again. For me, he's the number one quarterback this year. So, he kind of just did what we thought and just kept blowing. He had an awful, I wouldn't say awful, but he had a bad offense for Bama around him for what Bama normally does, especially receiver position. A lot of young dudes didn't really have any of those elite weapons like he did before with like John Mechie and Jameson Williams. He didn't have any dudes like that this year. So, but he still did what he had to do and was elite and might still be the number one overall pick, or he might go to the Texans. So something in this pick is right. He's either going number one or to the Texans, personally, I believe. So we'll see what happens when the draft comes, but that's what they had number one. Number two, Will Anderson, same kind of story. He's going to probably be the first non-quarterback off the board in this draft. He probably actually had a better junior or sophomore season than junior season, just from looking. Like I think his stock somehow fell a little from his sophomore season to his junior season. But I mean, even with that stock falling, he's still, like I said, probably the number one non-quarterback in this draft class, just an elite edge rusher. I mean, you can see here he had 81 pressures as a sophomore and just kept it up as a junior. Still a little undersized for an edge, but like you put him at that kind of outside linebacker role, and he's still going to be elite in the NFL. Like I said, talk about him more, but keep same story. I mean, realistically, we knew there were four blue chippers in this class coming in. Like this is from May, and these same four blue chippers are still blue chippers in this class. I mean, all these dudes are still going to be top five, maybe players in this draft class. Jalen Carter has some of the off-field stuff, but like as a football player, he was still up here. He actually probably jumped Will Anderson. But like I said, these first four are kind of gimmies. This isn't really the interest of the video. These dudes that we knew were going to be good, they played well, and they're still in the same situation. Where it gets interesting is here, Jacksonville Jaguars. He is the way too early mock draft king of our lifetimes. Eric Gilbert, whichever one it is. He was LSU. He was in the way too early 2022 mock drafts as like, hey, watch out for Eric Gilbert. Goes to Georgia. Hey, 2023 mock drafts. Watch out for Eric Gilbert. We're going into 2024. I bet you. Watch out for Eric Gilbert. Maybe he'll finally do something this year, but he's just like receiver tight end hybrid, 6'5", 248, just an elite athlete. But I mean, he was their third tight end this year behind Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. He's sticking it out, man. Dude's sticking out at Georgia, still gonna be behind Brock Bowers. We'll see what this dude does. I mean, like people are comparing him to Kyle Pitts, and I mean, he's got the athleticism like that. Like former receiver. We'll see, man. Like I said, the king of way too early mock drafts, Eric Gilbert. We'll see if maybe. I wonder. I can't wait to see when we start getting 2024 way too early if he's still in there, because this could be 3 years strong of way too early mock drafts for Eric Gilbert, and he's a legend in the way too early mock draft scene, and he is the reason we do way too early mock drafts is for players like him. Just a fun dude that we'll see if he ever does anything. Still did nothing this year at Georgia. We'll see. He's jumping Darnell Washington in the depth chart just because he's going to the draft. So we'll see. Next up, we got Carolina Panthers. They took Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee still in this draft class. PFF was always higher on Tanner McKee than I think anyone else. They just love some of his traits, but kind of didn't have the year I think PFF was hoping for out of Stanford. Like I said, they have that weird like long mesh offense that kind of like you see with Wake Forest. Just a weird offense. He doesn't have like any talent around him at Stanford. Michael Wilson was out most of this whole year for Stanford, so I think he played like 6 games, Michael Wilson. So like we didn't get to see him for most of the year. awful offensive line they have there at Stanford. But nonetheless, dude, that he's probably gonna be a second or third round pick, probably quarterback what six, because you got your top four. Hendon Hooker, I think, is definitely above him, so he's probably a quarterback six in this draft class. Maybe day two. I mean, after last year, you can never guarantee where quarterbacks are gonna go. Um, but like he's got great size, and we'll see. We'll see what he is, but definitely not what people thought he could be at Stanford his last year. People thought he would really take that step after not playing a lot of football, take that step into being that dude. Didn't really do it, but we'll see down the road if he does. Next up, we got Jaquelin Roy from LSU. Um, Another just kind of athletic interior defensive lineman that had a lot of high praises from a lot of people. I know it wasn't just PFF, like an elite pass rushing grade, like you can see there. Um, he was just a dude that we thought he was a true sophomore, played really well, kind of didn't have the senior season. He did enter the draft this year. I believe he's like third, fourth round projections from a lot of people. He didn't even crack my top 10 defensive tackles. It's a really good defensive tackle group, kind of in that day two range. But just a dude who didn't like, he had a great sophomore season, didn't really put it together junior season, entered the draft. He's a dude that maybe he could have returned to college, but I don't know. Just a dude that kind of didn't take the step that, because like a lot of way too earlys are a lot of projections, and he just never really took that step that we thought he could. So that's why, like I said, third, fourth round kind of guy probably now. Whereas like they had top 10 here. Will Levis, same kind of story as the top four guys. We thought he was going to be good. I think he had a really good season. He's kind of becoming somehow one of the more underrated dudes in this entire draft. Just where like people almost got too high on him that people started backing off too much, and it's like you go from one end of the spectrum back to the other, and he's really somewhere in the middle. Like people keep saying, oh, it went from the number one quarterback to he's not a first round quarterback to like it's somewhere in the middle that people are just kind of losing the sight on Will Levis, but like I still think he goes around this range in the NFL draft. So it's probably somewhere around there. Kayshon Boutte is the story of way too early mock drafts too. Like this dude, people are comparing him to Jamar Chase. He showed elite athleticism. He was incredible last year. I mean, go turn on Kayshon Boutte's 2021 film. I mean, this dude was incredible with not great quarterback play. I believe it was Jaden Daniels was his quarterback then. All right, no, it wasn't. Jaden Daniels was his last year. I can't remember the quarterback's name. He plays for Texas A&M now, but the lefty, not great quarterback play, and he was balling in 2021. He was gonna be the next Jamar Chase. 6'2", 205, elite athleticism, and then like he comes out and he looks like he doesn't want to play at LSU. Starts posting cryptic stuff that he wants to leave LSU, and then has a really awful 2022 year, and then he says he's gonna stay at LSU, and then stuff starts coming out about him off the field doing some weird stuff before the bowl games, and all of a sudden he enters the draft, and you're like, okay, he's entered the draft, he put on film, but like he's still at least an elite athlete. He's gonna put up great testing, be kind of like a George Pickens kind of guy where you don't have the film, but like we've seen it, and then he just completely blows up the combine in a bad way where he runs like a 4.5 or 4.6, and I'm like, I thought this dude was supposed to be an elite athlete, and like it's what he looked like on 2021 film, and then just never put it together. I still have hope for Kayshon Boutte. I think his mentally and his mind, he just wasn't there this season, and it showed on the field, off the field, and the stuff he did. I think it was just an awful situation. I still have hope that he can be a good receiver. Like I feel like it's hard for me to see what he did in 2021 and just say he can't do it anymore. Because like you can see here, he put up 308 yards in one game as a true freshman. Like we've seen it with Kayshon Boutte. I personally think he had a down year, and I'm a dude that would still take a risk on Boutte in like the day 3 or probably third round. I still think in the third round, Kayshon Boutte is worth a shot. I mean, like, cause like we've seen it. You're just hoping that it was just a weird year for him. There was so much going wrong, with a new coach, everything. It was just such a weird year for LSU in general. You're hoping that's what it was, because like this dude was like with the ball in his hands was elite, and you just hope that that's what he is in the future. So yeah, weird season for Kayshon Boutte, but we'll see going forward. Next up, they had Antonio Johnson. At 10, he's another dude that we thought maybe he could be like a true safety, and that's why he was kind of here. If you think a true safety kind of guy with just elite size and athleticism, but he's kind of found more of a niche role as a big slot corner at 6'3", 200, which is kind of a more niche role, which is why he's probably going to be like a second round dude. Whereas I still think he has good tape, and he's still a really good player that like, his how he plays could be like first round talent, but just his position, if he's going to be like a physical slot corner, is not really what you see a lot. So he's kind of like more of a niche role, which is why he's not highly regarded. But I still think he's a good player for what he is, and he'll still be probably a top 50 pick when all said and done for me in the draft. Next up, Anton Harrison. He's that kind of got jumped by some other tackles, but he's still probably first round tackle. I had him going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19 in my first mock draft. So like, it's still a dude that still good tackle, probably still first round tackle in the draft class. Didn't really take the step that we thought maybe with his athleticism that he would take, but yeah, again, still a big bruising tackle that's going to be probably a good first round pick. Cam Smith, another dude who the reason Cam Smith was at 12 pre-draft and now he's kind of looking more at like late first, second is more, I think it's more to do with the other guys in Witherspoon, Gonzalez, and Deontay Banks taking huge steps. Cam Smith, I think, is still kind of the same dude we thought he was. Like I said, I think some other dudes just took a lot bigger steps than he did and kind of passed him, and that's why he's kind of falling. But I still think he's a really good player. I kind of talked about in my last second round mock draft that I did, but like still a really good corner. Just I think some other dudes kind of jumped him and kind of took over role above him and pushed him down the draft board. Now Nolan Smith is another dude who he was here at 13 in the pre-draft because of his athleticism. He got hurt, kind of was more of like a late first, second round dude, and then blew up the combine and stuff. And now he's probably back to about this range. I think this is about where he might go. There's a lot of buzz for him going top 10 now. It's just that athleticism stays with dudes. You've seen the dudes in this mock draft and this way too early that are still there are a lot of elite athletic dudes. And those, like, the NFL loves athleticism. Athleticism doesn't go. Tape can be up and down, but athleticism usually doesn't go unless your name is Keishon Butte. Athleticism doesn't go, so that's why I do like Nolan Smith is still here. Brian Bresee, this was a complete projection by PFF based on him being like the number one. He didn't like he got hurt, and like you see here, he played 150 snaps in 2021. Didn't have a lot of film coming into the 2022 season, so PFF was projecting based on like the number one recruit, his elite athleticism. He had some off the field stuff with, I believe it was his sister passed away, and didn't play as much, but when he did play, he looked elite. Had some more injury stuff. He's a dude that like I've talked about him a lot, where like he's an elite athlete. And I think he plays really well. He's an elite pass rusher. I think at the defensive tackle, he just has to stay on the field and be more consistent. And so he's probably going to go later because of this inconsistency. But like as a player, I think he's still up there. And like 14 is not unreasonable for just the type of player he is. It's more his consistency that's going to drop him down a lot of boards when it comes to the draft. Andre Carter, he's another just projection. You can see 6'2", 260, humongous dude. He really was a dude that like I think if he had a better Senior Bowl, he could have been a first round guy. But like he kind of came to the Senior Bowl and like because like he played at Army, so we were kind of like, his competition isn't always there. He's played for Army, but like he's just great size that you're thinking could project. And he looked kind of outmatched at the Senior Bowl, and he was one of probably the biggest disappointments for the Senior Bowl, where like we thought this dude was going to solidify himself as maybe like a first round guy, kind of didn't. He's still a great project, and still that elite, the elite size is still there, and another team's going to take a risk on him just because of that size and just what he could be. So we'll see where he ends up going, but like another dude that good projection that I see why PFF put him here. Before the 22 season, but after like the season and the Senior Bowl, he just didn't really show what we were kind of hoping we would see. Next up, Trent Simpson, another dude where it's just kind of linebackers becoming less and less valued. I think a dude like Drew Sanders, I think maybe jumped him, and maybe even Jack Campbell as some linebackers, but I just think it's a less valued position. I still think he's a really good linebacker, and they're right to have him here. Just elite coverage linebacker with sideline to sideline ability. He can blitz pretty well. Played really well for a really good Clemson defense. Another dude that just the value of his position and just not being the elitist of athletes. Like, and when I say elite of athletes, I'm talking like Drew Sanders is nuts. Like, you got to be like an elite athlete to be like a first round linebacker, and he just isn't quite there. So that's why he probably ends up being a second round, but still a really good linebacker is going to go high. Keely Ringo, another dude who just didn't put on the greatest tape realistically at the end. Played really well for the best defense 2 years in a row. You see he got 4.3 speed, 6'2", 205, a height weight speed dude who I don't know where he's going to go. I think he could sneak in the first round still just with his height, weight, and speed. I mean, that's what people are looking for in the NFL. So, like, we'll see if maybe he goes in the first round, but just another elite athlete that's still going to stick around and be probably a top 50 pick. But like I said, with Cam Smith, I think some other dudes just jumped him with having like Witherspoon, Gonzalez, and Deontay Banks, just also elite athletes, also having way better seasons. I think overall that kind of just jumped him in the process. Skoronski, I mean, I had him mocked to the Titans in my mock draft. He had an even better season than like we had this projection. I think he even vaulted. He's another dude that vaulted himself in the draft. We talked about a lot of dudes here kind of fell. A lot of these kind of guys are going lower. He's probably one of the first dudes where I'm like, he definitely improved his stock and he's going to jump up and probably be a top 15 pick when it's all said and done. Whether he can be a true tackler or not, just even though I think he could be like an all pro guard, even just he's got that just elite understanding of the position and just great everywhere except for his arm length, pretty much. JSN, another dude who didn't play and somehow raised his stock. An interesting one who, like I said, the JSN didn't play this year at all and still somehow rose his stock. Just by his elite athleticism that we saw at the combine, just in the three cone stuff. He doesn't have, I mean, he ran a really good 4 day at his pro day too. So, still my number one receiver. He was number one before. We'll see how it goes. Moving on. Chris Adams Drain, another dude who changed from receiver to cornerback at Missouri, and he's another just elite athlete. I didn't see. I'm like 90% sure this dude returned to college. I haven't seen him anywhere. I did some more research on him. I'm pretty sure he's coming back to Missouri for another year. He posted stuff like that. He's coming back, so he's another dude that probably might show up in your 2024 mock drafts as just an elite athlete that hasn't played corner. You think of like Caleb Farley, something like that, where he hasn't played corner a lot, but he's just an elite athlete. That cornerback's a position where you take risks on elite athletes, and he's just another one of those. We'll see if we'll talk about him more, hopefully coming this next year as he goes into his senior season, and he might be a dude we talk about in next year's draft class. So keep an eye on him if you're a college football fan and looking into next year's draft. I like some of the dudes Missouri got. They got an elite receiver coming in. Can't remember his exact name, but they got an elite receiver coming in high school. We'll see what Missouri does next year. But next up, we got Jordan Addison. Kind of stuck his value. Had a pretty good season at USC with Caleb Williams. After transferring from Pitt after being the Blitnikoff winner. He's kind of. I honestly think he's the exact same kind of dude we saw. I don't think the opinions changed on him. He's probably gonna go around 20. Still kind of the same dude. I think he just kind of kept up what we thought he was. He still is what we thought he was, and just kind of solidified that. And he's gonna be similar range in this year's draft. Miles Murphy, another dude who had a little bit of a disappointing year. I think his 2021 tape was better than his 2022 tape. They had a change in defensive system after the head coach went to leave for Oklahoma. So we'll see kind of how he gets drafted. But another 6'5", 275, elite size, really good in the run game. Kind of like Trayvon Walker, just an elite athlete, really good in the run game. Got to work on his pass rush moves, but kind of the same system. I can see him going anywhere from like 22 to 50, honestly, in this draft. I think some people are really high on him, some people are really low. I'm personally pretty high on him. I believe I'm as edge 5 or 6. Go check out my edge ranks to see more, but that's kind of where I see him. Next up, we got Bijan Robinson. I think he improved his stock even more. He balled out at Texas this last year. Like I said, improved his stock even more. The only arguments that come to Bijan is how you value running back, and where he goes is really just depending on how you value running back. So that's kind of reasonable there. Eli Ricks is another dude transferred to LSU and Bama. He's another dude that we talk about a lot. He's gotten a lot of talk. Incredible freshman. Oh, watch out for him. Didn't really do much. Goes to Alabama this past off season. Watch out for him. Didn't really have a great season. He's another like 3rd, 4th round kind of guy. I think PFF has him ranked in like the 90s. I want to say. Maybe he's in the 60s, but like maybe day 2, day 3 kind of dude at corner. Just a dude that like kind of started off really good as a freshman and kind of just injuries and stuff and never really put it back together. But just dude you're banking on, been some weird years, and he still has what we saw. Like you've seen 85.6 coverage grade as a true freshman. Doesn't happen a lot at LSU, so in the SEC. So another dude who we've seen some incredible things. It's just whether or not, what was the aberration? Him not playing a lot, not playing well, or his good coverage grade? I guess we'll just have to take the bet and see. Gervon Dexter, another dude who just really didn't take the step we thought. You see 6'6", 303. He's humongous dude, but like we thought he would take that jump with his athleticism and really be a next dude. Still has that elite athleticism. He tested really well at the combine, has a really good RAS score, but never really showed exactly what we want to see on film. He has like the high level plays, but just as consistency goes, he's not necessarily there. I had him at like 11 on my D tackle rankings, kind of tied at 10 with Zach Pickens. Kind of another day two dude. Just didn't really take the step we thought, but still an elite athlete, and why he's still talked about in the draft as another dude that, we're going to be watching and people are going to be looking at. Broderick Jones, kind of in a similar range. We knew he's a really good athlete, 6'4", 315, played really well at Georgia. I think he could play guard or tackle. I think he's probably better as a tackle, but I think he goes in this similar range. I had him to the Jets at, 15 in my mock draft, so I think he goes actually a little higher than this, but just solidify himself as one of the better tackles in this class. Devin A-Chain, he has really good film, really, really fast. Yeah, he ran low 4.3s. He's super fast. I just think running back's not valued as much. I think Jahmyr Gibbs jumped him in the rankings. I personally still have him. I have him as RB4. I think Charbonnet and Gibbs put more to be desired as elite rushers than A-Chain, but I still think A-Chain could be a day two dude who, like, elite speed is something you really look at running backs, and this dude is the fastest of all running backs in this class. So, like, not going to be a first-round pick like we may have thought, but, like, his speed will still get him a day two pick. Cooper Beebe, however you say his name, for Kansas State, he ended up returning to college, so he's probably going to be a dude where really, really good guard. We're probably going to be talking about him next year. He might be in your way too early 2024, and he's probably going to be one of the top interior linemen next year. So keep your eye on for him for next year's draft class. But like I said, he did return, so that's why you don't hear him this year. But next year, he's definitely going to be a dude we're going to be talking a lot about in that interior line class. Next up, we got Jaheim Bell from South Carolina. I don't really know what happened to him much. I didn't watch a lot of South Carolina. I kind of looked on, and he only had like a couple hundred yards for South Carolina this year. So, like I said, I don't really know what happened to him. Let me know if you know more about Jaheim Bell, but I tried to do a little research. I didn't really see much about him. I guess he just didn't have a good year. You see, he was one of those more just athlete guys. They have him as like a jumbo running back, kind of like a Chiga Konku kind of player. Really good with the ball in his hands. Don't really know what happened at South Carolina, but I guess another, just keep your eye on it. We'll see what happens down the road with Jaheim Bell. But yeah, kind of dropped off the face of the earth, so I don't really know what to think about him. Next up, Quentin Johnson. I think he really improved his stock because, like, when we saw him before this season, he was another dude, like, we're like, hey, the TCU offense was awful. He's just got all the measurables and size you want in a receiver. We just never saw it. And he finally started putting together some tape, and I think he solidified himself as a top receiver in this class. I personally have JSN right above him, but I think it's close. He's going to be your true X outside receiver. 6'4", he balled for TCU. Luckily, Max Duggan took that step that I think TCU needed, and Quentin Johnson needed him to take that step to really prove what he can do. Elite at the catch point, elite speed. Not the greatest route runner, but I think he can work on those. And just as a height, weight, speed, you talk about corners, he's just that at the receiver position. So another dude, I think he definitely improved his stock from this to where we see him now, and had a great season with TCU that ended up making the national championship. So, you probably couldn't have hoped for a better season from Quentin Johnson, because this was just a complete, like I said, I've been saying, like, some of these dudes PFF project and they didn't turn out. Like I said, I'm not criticizing them. You gotta give credit where credit's due. Where Quentin Johnson didn't really do anything his first couple years at TCU, they still projected him based off of his traits, and look at what he did. He went out and balled. So that was a great call there. Who improved his stock. Next up, Devin Leary, who had a lot of hype. He had a lot of hype. The PFF was not alone on the Devin Leary in the first round hype. He was kind of looked at as that next quarterback for a lot of people behind Stroud and Young. It was really him. We thought, like, Anthony Richardson was a complete wild card. A lot of people loved him, but, like, no one really knew. And then, Hendon Hooker, no one was really on that train yet. Like I said, PFF loved Tanner McKee. A lot of other people weren't high on him, but, like, he was probably consensus, like, quarterback. Or I guess I forgot about Will Levis. He was, like, a consensus probably top 5 quarterback going into the season. He got hurt, I believe. Didn't really have the season they thought. Ends up transferring and coming back to school. So we'll see what happens with Devin Leary. But another dude who we'll see. Like I said, he's gonna come back for another season transfer. I can't remember where. Where did Devin Leary go? That's right. Sorry, I had to look it up. I completely forgot. Devin Leary went to Kentucky, so he's hoping to replace Will Levis leaving there. We'll see. Kentucky did a great job with Will Levis. We'll see if Devin Leary can be that next dude and maybe come back into these way too early mock drafts and take a step next year. We'll see. Next year is going to be a very, very good quarterback class. It's going to be hard to compete with Caleb Williams and Drake May. But when you're looking at that next quarterback, he could definitely make a stamp for himself to be in there. He's going to end up going into I don't know if it's year 4 or 5 for him, So he's going to be a little bit of an older quarterback coming out. We'll see what he can do in his last year here at Kentucky, and maybe he takes that step and maybe he gets drafted next year. We'll see what happens. Next up, we got Paris Johnson, another one of the biggest risers from this last season. He played right guard, you can see in 2020, and played right tackle, or he did play left tackle. So he did play left tackle in 2021. For some reason, I thought he played right tackle, but yeah, but he played tackle. He had a pretty good sophomore season, and people were saying, hey, in the junior season, he's big. We'll see if he really can play. He's not really fit as a guard, so we'll see if he can take another step as a true tackle. He did just that. He's probably the number one tackle in most people's tackle class this year. Him and the Bears is like one of the best fits that everyone sees. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 10 pick and one of the biggest risers. Like I said, we can talk about how PFF, some of these dudes didn't, but I mean, they put Paris Johnson here, and he's kind of, a lot of people talked about him, but still ends up taking that step, and he's an elite guy. But anyways, that's going to do it. I just kind of want to look back. It's just kind of fun to look at. I love way too early mock drafts just because it's like a nice little preview for the college season, what dudes I need to keep my eye out on. Just some elite dudes that are looking to take the next step. Some dudes do, some dudes don't. Some dudes like Quentin Johnson take that step and jump their value. Other dudes like Jaheim Bell don't take that step and don't help. So it's just a nice little fun exercise. I just want to look back through, see what we were kind of thinking a year ago, to where these dudes are now, and it's just fun. But anyways, we got my rankings coming out later this week. You guys just saw my second round mock draft. We're coming out with tons of content. Make sure you go check out all my other content. But anyways, if you want to see more reactions to other mock drafts and stuff, let me know. I can keep them up if you want, but that's going to do it for today. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys for watching.